like to get started by review and approval of last month's minutes. I have them in front of me. Does anybody have any comments or changes to them? Motion to approve.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next order of business is some announcements, and I brought two announcements with me. If anybody has any other ones, then feel free to pipe up. I want to remind everybody that in 2 weeks or so, or about, I guess it's closer to 3 weeks, is the Radnor's Electronics Recycling Day. It's June 15th from 9 to 1 at the Willows, and it's entitled Anything with a Plug. And you can bring anything that has a plug to be recycled or properly destroyed. They'll wipe the media for you on any media storage devices. They are, and I had just noticed this a couple days ago, that they're now charging a $20 fee to accept a TV or a CRT monitor, and that was not the case in the past. At least the last event that I went to, and I brought my monitor to, it was a free drop off for that. I did a little bit of investigation into that, but I really didn't dig too deep. But
You mean if somebody brings a big TV here,
any TV or any computer monitor or CRT computer monitor,
there's going to be a charge?
there's going to be a $20 charge for that, yeah. So it turns out that they weren't able to cover their costs of recycling these devices in the past. They were losing money taking them, and this is a private company taking our waste for us.
Right.
So therefore, they found that they had to charge. Each one of these devices, turns out, has an average of 4 to 8 pounds of lead in it, each one. So I don't know what costs a lot of money for them to recycle. I know there's lead in the glass. I know there's lead in the device. There's circuit boards and all that stuff. So I'm not sure where the cost is to them, but there is now a charge, and you should be prepared to bring money with you. I also know that I've done a little bit of research, and if you try to recycle them on your own elsewhere, there's $20 charges just about everywhere I saw. So that must be a new thing in the industry.
Yeah, I would just...
Josh, in the past, there was a charge. It's not a commercial for Best Buy, but I guess it is. There was a $10 charge at Best Buy, and then they immediately gave you a $10 gift certificate. So there is still a charge, but theoretically, sooner or later, you'll need something from Best Buy, and then you just spend the money back. And if that's still the case, I don't know that. Well, this is the first I've heard of a community situation where you had to pay to drop off your TV. So that kind of changes the dynamic. And I haven't had to dispose of anything lately, so I'll look into it, and I'll email everybody.
Okay, yeah. Keep in mind, this is anything with a plug. It does not belong in our municipal waste stream. My daughter's desk fan just kicked the bucket the other day. You can't throw that out in the waste stream. It's got in the municipal waste stream. It has to go to a recycling event. So
I wonder if we should just see if another service provider would do it for less. Just see if
I think it definitely needs a little bit more research to see if there's if this is a standard across the industry. Yeah.
I just note, because I've read, I think, in the paper last weekend that I think it's TE has like a drop-off, I think I read it was like a permanent at the Township building. You can drop off, I think it was electronics at any time, which I thought was terrific, and I didn't think there was a charge. So.
Circling back to that Best Buy comment, that was only for displays and TVs. Everything else was free.
Yeah, and I should just clarify that everything else is free here as well. Just the TVs and monitors are a charge.
Well, I'm happy to call at least TE and find out what
that'd be great.
What their process is.
Yeah.
And then we can circle back if anybody knows.
I'll talk to Peggy Hagan here. I'm sure she's the one that's involved in this recycling event to find out where what she knows about this new charge.
I mean, they've been great events. It's terrific.
Yeah, we don't want to discourage people from bringing things by charging if we don't have to. But I have a feeling that there's it's a new standard.
But Josh, I guess also I would just note that from the presentations we've received, we know that there's a real risk of ending up sending a lot of this e-waste, to a cheap solution, which is overseas, where it's going to contaminate a community. So, I mean, I'm almost reassured that there's a charge required that's going to ensure that the handling is proper.
Yeah, their website, I did go on their website, and they do explain that they do things the right way, and then they showed examples of it being done the wrong way.
But I think that's a very good point. But I also understood that there's some value in many of the things that are recycled. So
Of course, there's a cost, though, to
there's a
preparing them.
cost, but there's also
yeah.
some of these people, folks know how to get value for the recycled material.
Metals and whatnot, yeah. Okay, on July 23rd, there's the Delaware Valley Green School Symposium is being held. This is an event that is intended to connect people and resources in order to grow greener schools. The idea is that you spend a day with colleagues from the region learning successful strategies for implementing green initiatives at your school. And the event will feature an inspiring keynote address by Stephen Ritz of the Green Bronx Machine, and I'm not exactly sure what that organization is, but the symposium is free. It is, we read about this in the Delaware Valley Green Building Council website, and the Schuylkill Center for Environmental Education is where, I believe it's where it's being held, and that's where you should go online to learn more about this and to register. That's the Schuylkill Center for Environmental Education. So those are my two announcements. Anybody have any other announcements?
Update on one thing. We had announced in our March meeting about the discounted home energy audits available through Energy Works, and at the time, as far as everyone knew, the funding was going to run out in May, but it has since been extended through September at least. So if anybody is interested in having a home energy audit done, go to energyworksnow.com and you can get all the information about how to go through that process.
That's great. Thank you. No other announcements? Okay. Let's move right along into our work group reports. I believe we're going to have a lively discussion this time about this. I'm excited to hear about our green team work groups. We received the minutes of the most recent green team meeting that occurred just, I want to say, yesterday, Tuesday. So this has the wrong date on it. No, yeah, that's right. Tuesday, okay. And so what I thought we would do is go over these minutes, or at least I'll go over them briefly to say what they say, and then maybe we can just have each person who's in their work group tell us how it went for the particular work group. And I'll start with those present, just so you know who was at this meeting. Melissa Kahn, who's in purchasing and contracts. Paul Bazik, who's the superintendent of operations. Benjamin Cooper, he's the expenditure coordinator. Lori DeNicola, she's the police administrative assistant. Marianne Donnelly in community development. Robert Hale, the IT coordinator. Sally and Ann from the EAC were there as well. I'll start with myself, and I have been shamed into inaction by, this is really, I'm shameful. This is going to do it for me. This is going to kick me right into gear here. I had the responsibilities of getting together with Steve Norsini and Paul Bazik to talk about streetlights and traffic signals, and we failed to do so. And that will not be the case next time, I promise. And if there's somebody else on this board who would like to join me in getting some of the work done in those two agenda items, please let me know, and we'll attack this together. But moving right along to green power purchasing. Robin, do you want to talk a little bit about green power purchasing, or should I? Yeah, I was going to say I could let one of the ladies who were there talk about it.
I missed the minutes. I didn't see the
Okay,
minutes. of the
all
meeting.
right. Ann or Sally, do you guys have the minutes in front of you? I can give them to you if you want to talk about the green power purchasing at all.
Sure. So Ben Cooper.
You want to turn your mic on for me?
I'm basically reading, but Ben Cooper reported on an analysis that he performed on green renewable energy purchasing options. PECO has discontinued offering wind power purchasing to customers. And so far he's concluding that buying green renewable energy is cost prohibitive. And it looks like it would cost extra. He's going to contact Westchester Borough to find out what happened when they recently issued an RFP for green and renewable energy. We also then talked about, instead of trying to buy green energy, what about putting on solar panels or, other things that could be done more directly. So he's going to start looking into possible funding for solar projects as well.
He might want to reach out to community energy in Radnor if he hasn't already done it.
Yeah, I know the name came up. I think he's aware of them, if I recall. I just don't specifically remember, but I'll make a note.
Yeah, and I wasn't at the meeting, and this is not my work group, and I know Robin would like to chime in on this as well, but I'm sure that there are green options that are less expensive than PECO's base rate. I'll say that.
It wasn't, well, this was, it was a little confusing about that. I was a little puzzled about that,
So
too.
we'll dig, this is not going to be the end of the discussion. This is just obviously somebody did a little bit of research, and Mr. Cooper, and this will just be a sort of kickoff, hopefully. But I know when I was converting my own home now that's a residence, so it might be a little bit different, but when I was converting my own home to an alternative supplier from PECO, there were options on the power purchasing website that were cheaper than PECO, that had some wind in it.
Right, but when we looked at it for our home, which was a little bit after you did it, all the green options were marginally more expensive.
Is that right?
And it doesn't work out to be that much for a homeowner, but when you're talking about the expenses of the township, it can be, $1,500 a month was what he was estimating, so it adds up to quite a difference.
But I do think we want to encourage the township to do an RFP because, if they can get into some kind of a bidding arrangement, it's certainly worth exploring, so at least they're turning down the opportunity based on good information. And the other thing is that some of those providers, provide a fixed cost, it's a contract for a period of time. And so that's not something to sneeze at because, their current supplier is not doing that.
They're very amenable to exploring it,
Okay,
exploring all the
That's
options.
great.
That's good.
Okay, more to follow there. The next work group was the building lighting improvements and recommissioning of township buildings.
Right, so first was the point, as I reported last month, basically we're waiting until the middle of June when hopefully there'll be more information available about what's going on in this building vis-a-vis the senior center and so forth. So we know exactly which buildings we're looking to do lighting improvements and recommissioning on. But in the meantime, we talked about the fact that probably one of the early items would be replacing some of the stairwell lights in this building with, I think, LEDs was the idea. Bob Hale and Ben Cooper are going to also start putting available information into the Energy Star Portfolio Manager tool to see what kind of information they come up with that way. I today checked with PECO and Energy Works to try and see if they'd have any sort of free or discounted audits for municipalities. So far, I don't think there is any with Energy Works. PECO may have some resources, so I forwarded that information on. So we're still at the kind of information gathering stage while we also wait to see which buildings exactly we're going to deal with.
And I see that when they're talking about entering the information online, they're talking about the portfolio manager at Energy Star's website. That is the intent to try to benchmark energy usage?
I don't know the specific aim because I'm not that familiar with Portfolio Manager, but I think the idea is to see, do you know differently, to see what the township's usage is, to have just some sort of base information to begin this process.
My understanding from the discussion is that they have been putting the information that they have into Portfolio Manager, but of course it doesn't tell you that much. But they have been already using it to get a baseline.
Oh, that's good. The next work group is the greening of the township vehicle fleet. And Sloan, you weren't able
Yeah.
to be, you weren't able to be at the
I
meeting, but
wasn't
you know
able to
most
get
about
to
this.
the-
so.
Yeah, I wasn't able to get to the Green Team meeting, but we are having a Green Fleet sub-team meeting tomorrow. And where things stand is that, as we talked about last time, Steve Norsini is recommending that we focus on the light-duty administrative vehicles as the first phase of greening the fleet, and he's working on a list of good candidate vehicles. Hopefully, they'll have that tomorrow, and has asked that we help keep our eyes open for funding, opportunities for the cost differential or perhaps some leasing options. So. The state, I spoke with somebody at the Department of Environmental Protection who mentioned that there is a grant program shortly to be released. Skip spotted it as well, and recently the website has the update that this natural gas vehicle grant program for medium to light duty lightweight vehicles is opening May 25th. So it's opening shortly. It's a confusing name. It's being called the Natural Gas Vehicle Grant Program, but in the fine print, it's open to not only natural gas vehicles, but also purchasing electric, propane, or other alternative fuel vehicles. We think at this point the most realistic category would be hybrids. Perhaps plug-in hybrids, but probably just regular hybrids for the township, because they don't have the facilities for natural gas and other alternative fuels handy at the municipal location. We're not sure whether the grant program will cover traditional hybrids, so that's something we're going to have to look at when the materials come out. The other thing is it's going to require a commitment to purchase or convert at least 5 vehicles over the next 2 years. The state person recommended, if that's a big number for the township, and I don't know, but if it is, that we team up with an institution in the same town or even another town. So, yeah, it's great. She encouraged it, and so I'll see what Steve's view is. My hunch is that that's going to be a big number, 5 over 2 years for the township. But if not, great. If it is, then I would love thoughts, suggestions on groups that might be good to reach out to and explore whether they're thinking about buying at least 1 or 2 hybrids and would want to team up with the township to do that. So maybe the school district, maybe Villanova. If others have suggestions for folks we could reach out to. The time pressure is that they've set aside $10 million in grants for the state. It's going to pay up to 50% of the price differential between the alternative fuel vehicle and a normal vehicle, so it doesn't cover the whole cost differential. Steve is hoping to look at this year's budget as a possible place to do it, which is, that process starts soon. So we know the grant programs are sometimes, hard to work into the budget process, but that's our hope, and I'll keep you posted as we proceed.
Okay.
I have 2 follow-up comments on that. You may recall I sent to some of you a story about a beer distributor in Wilkes-Barre converting vehicles that are, or purchasing vehicles that are similar in size to our trash trucks or larger to create eventually an all natural gas fleet. And buried in the text of the article is the fact that there is a refueling station in Norristown. And from experience, by watching it on Henderson Road, the trash transfer station for all of the trash from Radnor is on Henderson Road. So trash trucks would only have to go another 1.5 miles or 2 miles to refuel on natural gas, which is probably close to 60% or less the cost of conventional diesel fuel. And of course, the carbon footprint is much smaller.
That's a great point.
And even at that, depending on the size of the tank and the refueling times and things like that, which are all economic factors, maybe some of the school buses too.
Yeah.
You know, at least school buses that have a terminus on that side of the township.
Yeah, well, you sent that article, thank you, and I'll mention that to Steve, because I think it's a good idea. I think he's certainly open to the larger vehicles as well. I think he's thinking practically about how to do it. This may be part of the answer, but
I think this new grant is a two-pronged thing. I mean, conversions are for light and medium-duty vehicles, but if you want to buy a trash truck, you still can get the money,
right, they
from what
have
I've read.
They do have an existing natural gas program for the vehicle, the heavy-duty vehicles. On the website now, it's saying that program is closed, but I think it opens and closes.
In the website, it says it's closed. That's for conversions of large vehicles. In the fine print on that new starting May 25th, it says that it applies for the purchase of a vehicle of any size. So a purchase vehicle, as opposed to a conversion, is still covered or potentially covered in the 10 million.
Right. Well, I think the new program that you're talking about is exactly what we're focusing on. And, you know, as I said, I haven't been able to find the materials for the grant, the application. The news looks like it's coming out any day now. So we'll drill down, figure out what's available. If it's a lot more than we think, we can at least say, hey, you know, it's not just light duty that we could get a grant for, and see if there's openness, especially with that, you know, the fueling station point. I've also heard Pico's got a station somewhere around here. So we'll put the idea out and see, because I think it's something that in the, you know, medium term at least we should be looking hard at, because that's really where the most of the fuel is being used in the bigger vehicles. So thanks.
I just want to ask briefly, nowhere in there did you see any mention of auxiliary equipment that might be necessary to make that
Like
switch?
funding for charging stations
Yeah.
and others, I didn't.
No.
But again, that's a good thing we should be looking for. I didn't see any funding for that.
I mean,
but
the
we-
funding necessary for electric plug-in vehicles is not much more than, you know,
Right.
a little, some like electrician's
be-
work, and
It can be quite modest.
yeah, it could be modest,
Especially if it's
especially
done-
compared to a natural gas
Right.
filling station. Yeah.
Right, that's right. Especially, right, if they have a facility where they could just add an outlet, a plug inside, not a whole outdoor charging
Mhm.
facility.
The last work group was the green procurement policy work group. Ann, you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Right, I'm working in that group with Melissa Kahn, and we've looked at a variety of resources, the policies adopted by counties and municipalities, and also at the state and federal lists of criteria that we can kind of piggyback off. So rather than putting the onus on the township to constantly keep a list of products, we've drafted the proposed policy, or the initial draft of the policy, to suggest looking to the Pennsylvania and EPA lists. So we have a draft policy. It was distributed to everybody on the Green Team. I think everybody here has also received a copy. And we're getting the people who would actually have to deal with it to look at it to see if it feels workable to them. But there seemed to be a pretty good, everybody seemed pretty receptive to it. It's quite comprehensive when you actually look at the range of things that the township purchases. It's quite a comprehensive effort to become more green.
Can you just give us an example of how this might work for one of those items that the township purchases? Can you think of one?
Well, I mean,
Sorry to put you on the spot like
there are a
this.
bunch listed in it. They're actually already working at purchasing paper from recycled sources. So some of it they're already doing. But it talks about cement and asphalt concrete. You know, so if they're going to do, they don't do a lot of cement and asphalt work. They quite often contract it out, but they do some, and this would direct them to use greener products for that. So antifreeze, right? Lubricating and hydraulic oils, electronic equipment, toner cartridges. So part of, this is not just green purchasing, but it's also sustainability. So to make sure that they would recycle toner cartridges, which it sounds like they do only intermittently right now. So I think already they'll be looking at improving that practice. One of the things that would be required by this policy would be that the IT department would reprogram all of the copy machines to do two-sided copying as the default. So that would reduce paper use. So it goes on and on, the list.
So it's not just a procurement policy, but it's also has a little bit of operational
Right,
recommendations in
it's
it.
the Green Procurement and Sustainable Practices Policy. We decided to go broad.
I like it. So I would imagine it's our job now, if we haven't done so already, to carefully go over that and provide comments before our next meeting, like via email, right?
If people want to do that, that would be helpful. And if you can look specifically at where your comments would fit into the proposed policy, that would be helpful. But of course, we're also waiting to hear back from the township employees who would actually have to work with it, and I suspect they'll have some questions and suggestions about drafting it as well. But I'm pretty excited about the possibility that this would move forward. The process, as I understand it, is that once the green team agrees on a draft, they would take the input from the EAC. Once they agree on a draft policy, it has to be approved by the Board of Commissioners, so it would have to be looked at by the solicitor for the township and then voted on by the Board of Commissioners.
And I'll just ask a question that would be asked by the Board of Commissioners, I'm sure. Is there anything in there that discusses, a costs associated with the green procurement?
The standard language in these policies is that you go with the environmentally preferred products unless they don't perform satisfactorily or are unreasonably expensive. And a question came up at the Green Team meeting about whether we could define that more precisely. And looking at a lot of policies, I really don't think we can. There's a judgment to be made.
So, remind me, I did look at the policy, but I can't remember. Does it include something in the nature of a tracking or a monitoring of it?
Yes, and this was a question that I looked at with Melissa, because one of the things I think we confront in all these areas is that the township is spread pretty thin right now, and nobody is in a position to take on substantial additional duties. But the very last provision in the draft policy addresses monitoring and reporting. And in their current purchase order system, there is a blank field that they could use to tag whether this was a green product.
Oh, good.
So Melissa's initial assessment is that this would be something that they could do pretty easily.
That's great. And that might feed into the cost comparison, make that fairly easy to calculate. Did we, how much more or less are we spending because of this, if that's a big concern?
I think so.
That's great. What a good start.
The last part of the meeting, I'll just wrap up the Green Team section. In the minutes, Melissa wrote that under new business, team members discussed providing drop-off containers at the municipal building for the recycling of CFL bulbs, toner cartridges, and cell phones for residents, which is really great, because I have a pile of CFL bulbs that I can never remember exactly what I'm supposed to do. I think I know what I'm supposed to do with them, but I just, I never get around for it, so I would bring them to my meeting. But that's great. And that was the end of the business.
Was that just an idea, or did?
I actually raised a question because I've been having trouble figuring out what to do with CFL bulbs, and I was reading about it online today. I mean, you really just don't want those around your house, subject to be broken. So keeping them around, waiting to take them someplace is not good. Right now, it sounded as if the likely drop-offs would be at Home Depot or maybe Lowe's. I think they take them, but I'm not sure. But they were talking about the possibility of adding these drop-offs at the township building.
That being the end of the Green Team part of our work group reports, we'll move along to sustainability and the WaterSense EAC tip of the month. Do you happen to have one this month?
I do.
You never fail. You never fail to have one for us.
Keep you in suspense while I do note that there's some good news on the electric car front. This is an announcement. Thank you, Robin, for forwarding it. From Plug-in America, they're announcing that this week, the 100th plug-in vehicle sold, 100,000th electric plug-in vehicle sold since the introduction of the latest generation of highway-capable plug-in vehicles just over 2 years ago. They also said that 250,000 people are using electric transportation in their personal vehicles every day now. Nissan dealerships in some markets have reported that the Leaf has outsold all other of their Nissan models for particular sales periods. The Tesla, which is getting a lot of press, is outselling Mercedes-Benz S-Class, the BMW 7 Series, and the Audi A8, which is pretty cool. I hear in L.A. it's definitely, you see a lot of Teslas around. Chevy Volt drivers alone have logged over 187 million electric vehicle miles. Plug-in vehicle market is approaching 48% annual growth, with both battery electric and plug-in hybrid vehicles finding growing interest. Plug-in vehicle adoption rates exceed the adoption of hybrid vehicles over the same time frame in their market developments. This is interesting. Domestic electric vehicle fleet now offers over 2,000 megawatts of battery storage. We were talking a little before the meeting about battery storage. So right now it's 2,000 megawatts of battery storage, and they're working on ways of getting that back into the electrical grid during periods of intermittent, some problems with the energy grid. They haven't figured that out yet, but they're working toward that. I meant to calculate how many households would be powered by 2,000 megawatts, but unless anybody already knows that, it's a lot of households. And then there's some other good news. There's also good news from Chevy. Chevy today, or at least I saw it today for the first time, there was a headline on Fox News: Chevy sparks price war with new electric car. A $19,999 Chevy, I guess it's the Spark, which they're going to produce an electric version, which will be that price after the federal credit. It's 38% lower cost than the Volt. I wish they'd rolled this out a year or two ago, but it goes twice as far as the Volt, 82 miles on a charge. And GM announces that it expects to build 500,000 electric vehicles a year by 2017. So some pretty good stuff going on in the electric car world. The Chevy Spark is cool news. On WaterSense, I have reached out on the tax holiday to some of the local groups and a local legislator who's considering introducing it, but nothing firm at this point. I'll let you know if anybody moves forward on that. But on the WaterSense tip of the month, they're suggesting that we consider giving bathrooms a WaterSense mini makeover. And they have some tools for figuring out how much water you can save by upgrading bathroom fixtures. They note that bathrooms are by far the largest water users in the home, accounting for more than half of all indoor water use. You can save up to, or about, the average household could save about 7,000 gallons annually, enough water to wash 6 months' worth of laundry by using the WaterSense products for toilets, faucets, shower heads, and other bathroom fixtures. Those products use at least 20% less water and perform as well or better than standard models. And they note they've got 4,000 different WaterSense labeled models of bathroom fixtures currently available. So that's the
Tip of the month.
tip of the month.
Do you remember Joe Carcioni? Do you remember them?
yeah.
Which your tip of the day?
Right.
I just wanted to mention something about the help me out. What's it called? The green.
The resolution?
Yeah, the resolution.
Did you talk to the?
Yeah, I this is probably not the right place to talk about it, but I went to Valley Township. If you recall, at our 2 meetings ago or so, we had a EAC rep from Valley Township stop in and tell us about his new organization and how they were faring. And just last week, I had the opportunity to go down and make a presentation to them about what we've done since I've been on the EAC, and what type of what hurdles we've come across and what successes we've had, and if we had any advice for to make things smoother for them in their early stages. And so I enjoyed it thoroughly. It's a much different operation, much different township over there than what we have. They're, I think, about a fifth of the size, population-wise. Their major town is, oh gosh, just escaping me now. It's right on Route 30 there. It'll come to me in a second, but yeah, they have that big, the old steel plant there. That's now it's still a steel plant, but it's a little bit different. It's
Exton, or is it further?
No, it's further out. It'll come to me in a second. Sorry? No. You're close though. Anyway, so I mentioned the tax holiday, and they seemed like they were interested. They seemed, yeah, they're excited to. I said we would send it to them, and they could have a look and see if there was something that they could get behind. And
Should I send it to you and you can forward it?
yeah, please, that'd be great. And if this kind of thing is what we need for that resolution before it gets sent to the state, then we ought to consider some way of broadcasting this to other EACs.
I talked to a legislative assistant for one of the local legislators, and he thought it's helpful, but he didn't think you'd have to wait for any particular number or whatever. So I thought of it as sort of a parallel track. Definitely helpful to get other EACs interested. So let's do it. I'll send it off to you for the Valley Township and other townships as well.
Okay. Next agenda item is community environmental education and awareness. I had longer announcements last month. This month, the only thing I wanted to say was that our Wayne Elementary School's green team from the PTO side of things is looking for new help, and I'm sure all of the other PTO groups in our school district would just love to have parents step up and volunteer. So if you're interested in that kind of thing and have some motivation, you should contact your school's PTO, and I believe all the schools have a green or an environmental committee on the PTO, and I'm sure they'd love to have help. Our liaison reports. We have two today. We have Skip and Luke. Skip, you want to take it first?
Okay. Well, the two huge items lately in front of planning are the Villanova project. And the very latest event there is that planning voted to turn down the application for a zoning overlay ordinance at this point. There's a variety of reasons for that. It would take 15 minutes at least to say, but I would say that we would prefer to be working from an actual plan as opposed to a sketch and an ordinance, and that we wanted more input from staff and actually from the commissioners as to where we should be going with this. So at this point, the vote was 8-1, and we rejected the plan or sketch or concept as it is. The other thing that's still bubbling, it was tabled last month, is the proposal by Biomed to go from 430,000 square feet of office space to just under 900,000 And I just got a letter yesterday from Brandywine, which might be the largest commercial property owner that pays taxes in the township, and they oppose that. So that's a quick summary of what's going on. I think we're going to see biomed at our June meeting. I'm not sure what we will see, though. As opposed to pure office, a number of us in planning would like to see mixed use instead, because the traffic consequences are catastrophic almost. And the other thing is that the existing space is partially vacant. It was originally designed as laboratory space, and the new space is pure office, does not have enough parking, and King of Prussia Road is going to be stressed.
That would be mixed use with what? With,
It could be residential and office. It could be retail or a restaurant, something like that. In other words, you have to spread the traffic out.
Did they have to provide a traffic study, or is that something that we could ask for? Or?
That was another attempt to create a new zoning district. A laboratory district doesn't work anymore, and this was supposed to be transit-oriented development, but I would say they were very light on the transit part, other than to say it was transit-oriented development.
Yeah.
There's been some discussion about connecting the R100 Radnor station and the heavy rail R5 Radnor station, or at least moving them much closer. There's a study on that actually that SEPTA has undertaken as a portion of their study to extend the R100 to King of Prussia. But that's years out. So this, of course, Biomed wants to go, now.
And could I ask on the the planned institutional zoning? Is that I'm
We paused for 2 months on that.
okay.
After what just happened with the Villanova vote, I am uncertain as to the current direction. Let's put it that way.
Could the planned institutional zoning, could that go in first and apply to?
It could, but what Villanova's situation is they sought an ordinance that is not perfectly unique, but nearly unique to their 13-acre parking lot. And the density is 3 to 4 times what would be permitted on a by right under the current ordinance. And the current ordinance doesn't permit 5-story buildings, but they want 5-story buildings. The current ordinance has much deeper setbacks than what they would like. There is a logic to concentrating development in a portion of a campus, but the situation was very frustrating to planning, let's put it that way. All the trade-offs weren't really being presented, if there are going to be trade-offs. I know there have been discussions with staff and maybe with the commissioners, but it was not really available to us in our meetings, and we just, for a variety of reasons, we just voted to basically say no. If they wanted a vote, we decided to say no.
Wow, that's great stuff. I mean, must be intense meetings, similar to ours. Not as quite as intense as
It was
ours.
the largest crowd in 4 years at the last meeting in the audience.
Standing room only? Almost.
Close. People were like sitting over there by the sink and everything else.
Wow. Luke, your turn.
Sure. Community programming and recreation has been busy. They've lined up a lot of events. The goal is to do one event per month at least. Recently, the police open house, the truck zoo, and the blood drive all took place. Personally took the family to the open house and the truck zoo. My son loved it. Plenty of kids there, plenty of families there. They seemed like huge successes, much like the Wheels of Wayne. With regard to this particular board, we had the spring cleanup event on the 19th, which I'm given to believe was a success, and we had the shredding event on the 18th, which I'm given to believe went very well as well. So they're busy over there, and they're trying to do what they can to bring in environmentally friendly things while also bringing in family-friendly and community and business-friendly events as well. The other issue that we have is the Willows, and getting the geese out of there, basically. The field naturalization effort was mentioned. It's going to be discussed. They haven't made a firm decision on what exactly to do yet. I know Dan has offered his expertise on that, which I appreciate, and I believe we're going to try to talk to Tammy in a sit-down to figure out where exactly we can go with that and whether that's going to be viable for us. So hopefully it is. Hopefully it is. But it's been brought up, they're aware of it, and it's an option they're going to consider.
The Willows, the overall Willows process.
The overall Willows process is stalled. And not indefinitely. It's stalled until, I believe, the end of August. So it's not indefinitely, but they need another month or two to kind of catch up with everything and do it right, as they said. So the overall process is delayed, and that's kind of caused the removal or addressing the geese problem to be kind of put on the back burner right now. But something that will be addressed hopefully shortly.
Down to 2 contenders for the Willows?
As far as I know, there are 3, and I believe another one came in out of nowhere that had something that they liked. So that's why they felt like if they held to their deadline, they wouldn't be able to get it done properly, was what Mr. Zinkowski relayed to me. So and Tammy was on board with that. So in August, they should be ready to make a decision. So that's the deadline right now, unless it gets pushed back again. We'll see, of course.
Dan, did you want to add any comment to that? The sustainable parks policy part of
Not too much to add,
Not
just
too much
that
to add.
I've reached out to Tammy Cohen. She's away for a couple weeks, and we're looking to sit down with her. She asked that we first meet with her and her staff before we went before a public board, parks board meeting, which makes sense, just so that we're suggesting things that, they can do within their budget and manpower constraints.
Okay, great. Yeah, I saw that she's back in early June, right?
Right.
So, sounds good.
Any news on the Cowan rain?
It's soaking up rain as we speak.
It's
Yeah,
doing
no,
its
plants,
job.
plants, there was some plants that you couldn't even see after we planted them, and they're all popping now,
Good,
and
Good.
things are coming along, so,
great.
yeah, I'll start taking pictures every few weeks and get a little animation going for you.
Oh, that'd be great.
All right?
I went by there today after the big rain. It's still there.
Yeah.
There wasn't a massive deluge that took it out or anything, so. Okay, we're finished with our liaison reports. Any old business? Or how about new business? We have some people in our audience, which, by the way, I'd like to mention, the Valley Township did not have anybody in their audience, so.
Really?
Yeah, so here I thought we were the only people that had light turnout, but they also get very light turnout as well. But anyway, Sally, I know you know some of our audience members. Can you want to start off by introducing them? Turn your microphone on, please.
Extend a special welcome to my friend Azrina Abdullah, who's visiting from Malaysia and has a very interesting work background. We first met when she was the Southeast Asia manager for Traffic, the nonprofit that works to halt illegal wildlife trafficking. And she then went on to consulting about deforestation in Asia and has just recently started a new job in the Sustainable Development Division for Petronas, the giant Malaysian petroleum company. So pretty important job. And she's passing through and couldn't think of anything more interesting to do than come here tonight.
Yeah, welcome. Thanks for coming. We aren't quite as, a world power as Petronas. This is our Petronas Tower, though, right here. This is our tower. I do know the towers, yes. Well, nice to have you. Any other public comment, if you guys want to say anything or no? Just here to, please step up, and I think the microphone is on. If not, you might have to just throw a switch there. There you go.
Okay, it's on. Thanks for the introduction, and this is a really good exposure for me in terms of the discussions that goes on, especially where environmental decisions are made for the townships, because we don't have it back home. It's not this public. But I have two questions regarding the Green Team initiatives on the recycling. One is because you're looking at the whole product life cycle. One is, how do you monitor and ensure that the items that you're collecting for recycling is being disposed correctly? that's like, for example, the toner cartridges that you're submitting for recycling. That's one initiative, right? That you're
Yes,
doing?
well, toner cartridges, the companies that sell them have recycling built into it, so you can actually send the toner cartridge back. But
Okay.
in the discussion that we had at the Green Team meeting, it came to the light that certain cartridges are being returned, but a lot of them aren't being returned. They're just being tossed.
Okay.
So that's actually a pretty easy recycling step, and the companies, I think, have been pretty reliable about refilling them and reusing them.
And just to further her question, is it our understanding that those companies are just cleaning them and refilling them? Is it a
I think that's what they
reuse?
do. I think that's what
As
they
opposed
do,
to having
yeah.
them melted down?
Right, yeah, I think that's what they do.
Okay. And the second question is more towards the beginning of the product. How does the township ensures that the raw materials that you purchase is not coming, for example, from a forest in Indonesia that's been logged illegally, or like the recycled paper is made in, I don't know, some recycled paper sweatshop, if that exists. So how do you ensure that is not really within the supply chain of what the township purchases?
I don't think that that's something that I've personally focused on. I'm not sure how we can do that, but that sounds like something that we should explore.
Okay.
The two sources of information that you had mentioned, Ann, that we were relying on one was a federal and a state list of sustainable
criteria.
of criteria.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
Where any of those criteria have anything to do with, say, forest? Was it FSC certified or those kind of things?
I
or-
don't remember. I didn't, I mean, I looked at it, but I certainly didn't look at every single specification. I'll have to go back and look.
I think that's a really, really good point, though, is to incorporate something on either forest certified, or there is another certification that is a little bit greener still. So I think that's a really good idea. But also, there may be an opportunity for reclaimed material in some instances.
So the concept is that there are groups of recycled, let's say, paper products that you could see is also certified that didn't, no rainforest. Is that the concept that there's? Okay.
I have another commercial for you. As it turns out, my wife works for SCA, and that's Svenska Celluloska Aktiebolag. It's a Swedish paper company. They have the highest recycled content in their paper of any manufacturer in the world, they say. I can't prove it or certify it, but they're the only paper used, for example, at Lincoln Financial Field, and you see all their solar panels and windmills now, by the way, if you're on 95, turning all the time. But they go out of their way to use a very high content, and if the brand name out there is Torque, for what it's worth, but Torque, Tork. So you may see that somewhere.
Well, thanks for that comment. Anybody else like to have any public comment? Yeah, sure, step up. Just do me a favor and introduce yourself and what your name and where you live.
Oh, okay. Hi, my name is Liesl Schwarz. I actually live in Jersey, but I work here. I work at Villanova, actually. I'm the sustainability manager there. New position, about 2 months in now. And so my interest in coming was just to see what the township is working on, and if there's any potential partnerships. I think we would definitely be interested in alternative vehicles, something that the students are very interested in, and we're looking into possibilities for that in the future. So that would be wonderful to follow up on that. But if there's anything else that comes up in the future, I will try to attend meetings as often as possible. So I'm here for that, but I'm happy to give you my information afterwards.
What's your contact if we wanted to reach out? Can you give us your?
Yeah, do you want it on the record? Is that?
Well, no, can you just hang out here after our meeting?
Yeah.
We'll
Oh, yeah. Yep.
We'll
Plenty
exchange
of
information.
cards. Yeah. Wonderful.
That's great.
Thank you.
Nice to
And-
have you.
Thank you. And on the paper front, FFC certification does help making sure that you are sourcing sustainably, that the forests are not being depleted unsustainably, and it's a whole supply chain certification. So each member of the supply chain has to be certified for the end product to be certified. So that's one way you can do that. small suggestion. All right, thank you.
Nice to meet you, thanks. Anybody else like to, any public comment? Yeah, sure, step up.
Hey everybody, I'm Derek Sheehan. I'm with Community Energy in Radnor, down the road. And actually, Liesl, you were in our office not too long ago. We met. We've had a couple great interns from Villanova recently. And also, we've been, I guess we spoke with you, Amy, and about, I guess you guys met at the Earth Day Fest? Yes. Yeah. But really, I just, you know, I know that we've had a partnership with Radnor Township in the past. I know this is, I mean, something kind of unique that, you know, not many townships do, have a green team, and are as committed to sustainability. And, you know, it's, well, I guess we're right in your backyard, really. But you know, I really just wanted to come out and check out. You know, I was a little late, but just wanted to meet everybody and see, you know, what was going on and what the plans were for Radnor. And, you know, so happy to be here. Again, Derek Sheehan's my name, so I'll probably hang out afterwards too and talk to you guys if you have some time too, because I believe Melissa maybe reached out, or she called me the other day and mentioned that I should come out to tonight's event, and also I think she mentioned you, Josh. So,
Well, it's
yeah.
nice to have you, Derek. Thanks. It was Derek, right?
Yeah, Derek.
Yeah, thanks for coming out. I'm not sure we've met you before, but we've met a few other players on from Community Energy.
Yeah, you know,
Jay.
Yeah, Jay, of course,
Yeah.
Jay Carlos. Yeah, I guess there's, you know, the company changes. I'm sure it's probably looks like, you know, the landscape's a little different there since maybe, you know, you've last had interaction with us. But
Are there any updates or anything you'd like to let us know about in terms
Well-
of what you guys are working on?
yeah, actually, I don't know if you're aware of the Keystone Solar Farm that we just completed in October. It's the largest solar farm in PA. It's a 5-megawatt AC system. And we actually have been talking about scheduling bus tours to go out there for certain organizations that we partner with. Just because I think, you know, we think it's important for people to actually go out and see, you know, utility scale solar project, because a lot of people haven't. You know, not only the low impact, but how quiet it is. Just to educate people, get them familiar with it, because it's not something that educational barrier is big. Certainly something that we face very often, and I'm sure you all do as well. Other updates too on projects. We have a couple megawatts in Massachusetts that we've recently developed. Another project that's currently under construction. Projects in Indiana, a couple megawatts there, as well as North Carolina. The New Jersey solar market's starting to come back, so we're optimistic about some projects going through there. Also Puerto Rico, we have probably 40 or 50 megawatts in the pipeline down there. So, you know, despite the solar market, I mean, you know, in Pennsylvania it's really dead right now. Just nobody's really doing anything.
And the reason for that?
Well, really the reason is that I guess at this point, not only is it, you know, I mean, I guess we all know the political landscape there, but just the supply right now, the rec market is down. You know, for instance, we, to build the Keystone Solar Farm, we took on a big risk in taking on half the SREC contract. The other half is Exelon. And, you know, right now, those recs, you know, we were contracted at 200, and now they're at like 20. So that's just part of what you have to deal with in an SREC market as compared to, you know, like a feed-in tariff like they have in Europe, where that price is just set and, you know, it's very stable. We call it the solar coaster. You know, the AEPS will bump it up, and the developers will rush in and build supply, and then, you know, at the end of the year, if we overbuild, we're kind of out of luck until that alternative energy portfolio comes back and kicks it up again. So, yeah, we're definitely riding the solar coaster. But yeah, as far as projects go, that's really probably the bigger update. We have a couple other really cool programs going on right now that I thought that there might be potential for a partnership with Radnor. So We have a green friend raiser, which is kind of a cool idea. It's about having real conversations about renewable energy with people and, creating meaningful relationships. We are also a competitive electricity supplier in PA, the only one that's developing new supply. So, there are a couple of new programs, solar leasing as well, through Solar City, so, leasing residential solar systems. So yeah, really, I think there's some cool stuff going on. It seems like there's some great stuff going on here, and, I think it's probably been a while since we've had any communication, so I figured it'd be a good opportunity to come out and, show our presence and just meet up with some of you guys and talk about the stuff that we have going on.
And I don't know if you were here when we were talking about the green power purchasing, but that's something that we're encouraging the township to look into, and the price differential is a concern. So to the extent that community energy can help weigh in on that question, I think it's timely. So
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I think just looking through events, we do outreach, and we've done a couple with Radnor Township last summer, and actually I think one I was at in the fall, the Night at the Ballpark event here at the park out here. But yeah, I noticed that you guys had on the website that we had worked together in the past. As far, I think it was during the Pico Wind program, most likely, and that Radnor Township was purchasing wind RECs through community energy, and I thought, that was something that was new to me. I'm relatively new to the company, so I feel like we're discovering I'm discovering new partnerships every day. I'm like, oh wow, they're right there. Why aren't we talking to them? But yeah, if, that's certainly something that we can look at and address with the township if there's an interest to do some offsets or something of that nature.
Well, I'll follow up with you, Derek, afterwards, but just one question, which is you're mentioning solar leasing, so that's rooftop.
Yeah.
And that's despite the SREC situation in Pennsylvania, so there is Solar City is prepared to proceed with that?
Well, we recently had a grant that opened up very briefly. It was a small grant in PA. It was enough to support about 400 residential PV systems. That's averaging the size at probably about 5 kW. They went very fast, and so right now the market is closed in PA. People can of course purchase a system, but the idea of the lease is to avoid that cost of that upfront cost of purchasing a system. I think that's a grant that we're seeing is pretty annual, but with Corbett hopefully on his way out, maybe this is something that we can that will change, and the grant will be a little more maybe who knows what could happen to it, but I think the market does open up annually, and right now it's really active in New Jersey, our neighbor states really, New York, Connecticut, Maryland, Delaware. So yeah, PA, what's great about PA is that people really see the value in PV, and it's not this boogeyman, it's not this big huge decision, it's it makes sense and people get it, which is in Massachusetts, which is a very progressive state, people aren't as receptive. They're a little more stuck in their ways, which you would think it would be the opposite, but
Isn't Massachusetts on the edge, though, for PV?
The solar resource in Massachusetts is quite good. I think the real issue that we've run into, probably the biggest issue, is there are just a lot of tall trees, like here in PA. So a lot of houses do, people who are interested, they'd either have to take down a beautiful old oak tree or PV, which, I wouldn't really advise them to cut down a big, beautiful tree, but we do need rooftop systems as part of the solution. So, but yeah, the solar resource is good in Massachusetts.
Just one other question. I know we're trying to finish up, but do you have any facilities that are parking lots that have solar installed over them?
You know what? I don't at the moment. I don't know if we do. I'm sure we do at some level. Nothing. I think the one at Lincoln Financial is probably. I think it's somewhere between a 200 and 400 kW system.
Okay.
That was not. Yeah, we did not do that system. But yeah, I mean, that's something that I think it'd probably be something smaller. Really, the development that we've been doing lately has been it's been green development, but we do, like for instance with the Keystone Solar Farm, we didn't use any concrete, and we actually used a seed blend that improved the organic content of the soil over 20 years, or over the lifetime of the system. So it was actually deemed as agricultural preservation by the zoning board, by the township. So that was, there are ways to develop on agricultural land, like, it's very valuable in Lancaster. That was a big concern. And, once you make it a parking lot, it's just gone forever. So, yeah, that's part of our commitment and our mission is, if we are developing on new build sites, that we make sure that we develop them sustainably.
Great, thanks, Derek.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any other public comment? No? If that being all, then we'll adjourn the meeting. Thanks.